On this week's episode of Amari Purple Talk, we're talking live at First Avenue documentary and when will we hear Prince's final album and more. Amari Purple Talk starts now. Welcome to episode 6 of Amari Purple Talk, a podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical singularity. I'm Richard Cole, your imagination soloist, and I want to start by thanking everyone that is tuned in. I hope you're enjoying the show. Please leave your comments on the show in the comments below or on my website, www.amaricommunications.com. You can also find me on Twitter at Amari_now and on Instagram at RichardCole_Amari. And with that out of the way, we're going to dive into our first topic. And our first topic is the August 3rd, 1983 First Avenue documentary. When will it be released? So last year, or not even last year, around 2017 or so, there was an announcement along the same time as the announcement for the Netflix Prince documentary. There was also an announcement that the estate was looking for a streaming service to produce a documentary on the First Avenue concert that was done in August of 1983. It was a benefit performance that was part of the Minnesota Dance Theater benefit show. This is significant for a number of reasons. Number one, that 3 of the songs that are actually on the Purple Rain album were recorded live at this show. So this concert was the debut of I Would Die For You, Baby I'm a Star, and Purple Rain. This was also, I believe, the first appearance on guitar of Wendy Melvoin as well. So this was shot and filmed professionally, although the video and the audio probably at this stage needed to be cleaned up. But there's enough footage to have warranted a documentary. So there was an announcement around 2017 of the estate looking for a streaming service such as a Netflix to produce it. Around 2018, it was announced, although not widely announced, but it was announced that Apple was going to finance the documentary and show it on their streaming service. So at this stage, we don't know if it's in development. There hasn't been any further news that is broken regarding this documentary. As far as the Netflix documentary, we haven't heard anything as far as a new director for that one as well. We do know that Ava DuVernay is no longer directing the Netflix documentary, but there has been no official word on a director for the 1983 First Avenue documentary as well. So that's the question. When will it be released? Are there any announcements? Hoping so in the near future. Maybe we'll hear something within the next year or two. Now, I do know that Apple TV is throwing their hat into the ring of competing streaming services, and they will be introducing original content along with a back catalog of films from other major studios. So maybe, hopefully, we'll get an announcement sometime, maybe in the next year or so, as to when that will be released. I'm not sure if there will be an album attached to that or not, as far as there is a live recording of that concert, and of course it was professionally recorded, since 3 of those songs ended up as being part of the Purple Rain album itself. So we're going to discuss that one a little bit later. We're doing a very quick podcast this week. Just spent last few hours working on a special edition of our podcast. It will be the Emancipation Special, and hopefully we'll get that up on YouTube soon. But it will be my discussion of the history of the recording and the release of the Emancipation album. So we're kind of flying by the topics on this one today. But as far as the August 3rd, 1983 First Avenue documentary and when will it be released, like I said, we have no idea, but we're hoping something develops. So what do you guys think? If anybody has any information or about a release date or a director, are there still plans to go ahead with it? Let me know in your comments below, or you can always send them to me on Twitter at Amari_now. And that will be the end of our first topic. Our second topic is going to be how long should we wait for a release of Prince's last album? And what I mean by last album, of course, he was always in, for most of his career, in perpetual recording mode. So there was no telling a lot of times when certain albums would begin or end in the recording process. So we know that there were a couple of things in the works. We know that during the piano and microphone tour, we know that several of the concerts had been recorded, and there had even been something mentioned. I can't remember if he put it on Twitter or if it was in an interview or something, but he did state that that at some point there was going to be a release of the piano and microphone, at least one of the concerts, or the best segments of each concert compiled into a single performance CD. But there was no release date announced, but we do know that was something that was definitely in the works. Another project that was in the works was an album called Black is the New Black. And we do know that some tracks were recorded for it. And as far as the personnel, it was Prince, of course. There was a saxophone player, Adrian Crutchfield, I believe I'm saying that name correctly, on saxophone, and a bass player by the name of Mono Neon. And they had recorded several tracks for this project. Now, as far as what stage of completion it was in, depends on the source. There's been no official announcement of the project by the estate or Sony, which in this case they would have the licensing deal for that project. They would also have the licensing deal for the piano and microphone tour as well. But there's been no official announcement from either Sony Legacy or the estate about any plans to have this released. I mean, in comparison to, say, an artist like Jimi Hendrix, where at the time of his passing that he was in the midst of recording a new album, and although he started on it before he went on tour, and he was looking forward to really putting the finishing touches on it when he came back from the tour. And that's kind of similar along the lines of Prince as well, where he was looking forward to doing a lot of things upon completion of the piano and microphone tour as well. But with Jimi Hendrix, there were a lot of tracks that were completed. They just needed to go through the final mixing stages. And when the Hendrix estate acquired full control of Jimi Hendrix's catalog in 1996, one of the first priorities, in addition to releasing the material from his catalog that had been previously released, getting that back into circulation under their control, one of the first major projects was putting the finishing touches on what they believed would have been Jimi Hendrix's last album. So as far as the estate and what their overall game plan is for Prince, like I said, there's been no official word on it, but that is one of the albums that was sort of kind of in discussion prior to April 16th of 2016, or excuse me, April 21st of 2016. In addition to that, I'm wondering, and I'm just speculating at this stage now, if there was also another hit and run album in the works. There was the Hit and Run Phase 1 and the Hit and Run Phase 2 that were released in 2015. And those are pretty much officially the last albums that Prince released during his lifetime. But I was always curious to know if there was going to be maybe a volume 3, or if this was part of an ongoing series. Based on the cover illustrations, I'm not sure who the artist was, but there is a series of those sort of headshot illustrations, kind of representing each and every phase of Prince's career. So I'm wondering if the Hit and Run series was sort of going to be like an ongoing series of new material, maybe new material mixed in with items pulled from the vault that were going to be updated, which brings to mind maybe something like Extra Lovable, which was updated, released as a single a few years prior to the release of Hit and Run Volume 2. But it, long story short, it was part of that collection. So I'm curious as if he was going to maybe update certain vault songs for a future Hit and Run project, like a Volume 3, Volume 4. Was the intention to eventually cover all of those illustrations at some point? But that's just my guess. And something that I personally would have wanted to see and actually collect at some point as well. But those are 3 projects that I'm curious as to whether they'll see the light of day at some point. So that's a live piano and a microphone, either a single CD of a compilation of the best performances from each concert, or maybe even a box set of that tour, or maybe a little bit of both, maybe a single CD set or a box set or deluxe set for the diehard fans. So that's one project I'm curious about. Black is the New Black. Are there enough tracks to complete it? Is it possible to take maybe whatever tracks exist and maybe add something else from the vault from right around that same period? That's another one that I'm very anxious to see at some point. And will there be more Hit and Run compilations? There's enough material in the vault to warrant that. Kind of as maybe a record store day release, an annual record store day release type thing. Again, that's something me personally would like to see. I have a feeling that probably once Sony releases all of the sort of post-1995 catalog, once that's released, and once they acquire the Warner Brothers, the Classic Masters, once they acquire that catalog, I believe once 2021 hits, then I think we'll probably start to see some interesting projects, barring any surprises between now and then. But I think definitely once Sony kind of clears the decks of the post-1995 material that needs to be just reissued, once that's out of the way, then I think they'll start to turn their attention, or the estate will start to turn their attention to more comprehensive special, compilations of things that we've never heard before, things that we have heard but are just anxious to, have in our collections at this stage. But what's most important is, what do you think? Do you think that either it's going to be a piano and microphone release that'll be first out of the gate of brand new projects, Black is the New Black, Would you like to see another series of hit and run releases, compilations, maybe like for Record Store Day? Leave me a comment, and we're going to leave this topic and move on to actually our third and final topic for the day. And that's just going to be the project wish list. And this is sort of piggybacking off of the first topic. But the project wish list for this week is Prince live at First Avenue, August 3rd, 1983. And again, this is a live recording of a performance that was part of a benefit for the Minnesota Dance Theater. This was held on August 3rd of 1983. Most noted for the first public performance of Purple Rain, which has Purple Rain in its entirety. There's actually a third verse that was edited for time when it was put onto the Purple Rain album. But Purple Rain, I Would Die For You, Baby I'm a Star, those actual live recordings made it to the actual Purple Rain album. Were kind of some overdubs added, and again, like in the case of Purple Rain, edited for time for inclusion on that soundtrack. And that was basically because it gives the energy, or gives more energy to the performances you see in the film. So that's what this concert is noted for. It was professionally recorded, and to my knowledge, it was also professionally filmed as well. But for the sake of the project wish list, I know there may be a documentary. Again, we don't know if it's going to be released or not, or what's going on with it. But if nothing else, wouldn't mind having a live CD of that performance. And there's really not much you can really add to this. I mean, there's really not a bonus disc of unreleased material you can add to it. This show was a one-off, so it wasn't part of a major concert tour to where you can, again, maybe do a single CD or a box set documenting an entire tour. So this one would be just a single live CD, or I don't know if it's how long, I can't remember how long it is, but maybe a single CD, maybe 2 CDs at the most, with a, include a booklet, comprehensive liner notes, great cover. Let's see, and I don't know if this may be something that the estate can release with Sony. I don't really see this going with Warner Brothers, because remember, Purple Rain, the album, because it was a soundtrack album, that's under a different contract than Prince's standard recording contract of that time, or during his entire time with Warner Brothers. So anytime Prince did a song or an album for a motion picture, whether it was his own with Purple Rain, Parade, Graffiti Bridge, or if he was a hired hand, say in the case of the Batman soundtrack, or even something along the lines of the song Good Love that was in the movie Bright Lights, Big City with Michael J. Fox. The song Good Love was included on that soundtrack. In that particular case, that material will now and forever be in the hands of Warner Brothers, because motion pictures and their soundtracks operate on a totally different contractual scale than your standard or non-standard recording contract. So it would be interesting to see who would be able to actually release this concert, because technically those 3 songs are part of the film, but I would say as the concert as a whole was recorded, maybe not 100% with the intentions of it being part of the film. So, or originally being part of the film. I think that was not the intention. The decision was made after the fact, I believe, after the recording, to do that. But like I said, I think this might be a Sony release on this one. So not sure, but this is definitely something that I would like to see released at some point. If the documentary is to proceed as follows, then yeah, I would like to see this released as a companion piece. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in one big package, but if you're going to have the documentary exclusive to, I believe, Apple so far still is holding the rights to produce this documentary. So you can have that on the streaming service, because I would doubt at this stage it's exclusive to streaming. You won't see it on DVD, or at least you won't see it on DVD for quite a while. And to, the plan is to phase out physical media, but that'll be a discussion for another day. But yeah, I would like to see the actual concert released as a CD, as sort of a companion piece for it, because it's a part of history, and having that concert, and like I said, comprehensive liner notes. It's a great historical piece to have in your collection. But what do you think? Is this something you would like to have as your project wish list? Is this something that you would like to see the estate release in the near future or distant future after some of your other favorites? Leave me a comment below and let me know. And that's actually going to conclude to this week's episode of Amari Purple Talk. Like I said, we're going to fly by fast because I spent so much time working on the Emancipation one. Actually, I'm still working on it, and hopefully get that out to you guys sometime this week as well. If not, it'll be next week before I record episode 7. So be on the lookout for that. It'll mainly be up on YouTube. I'll probably still put the audio out across all the different podcast platform services, but I'll keep you posted on the release of that. So it will be the Amari Purple Talk Emancipation Special. So be on the lookout for it, folks. And until then, till next week, keep it purple and on the one.